Welcome back, everybody, to the third and final North American Online Qualifier Cup. My name, once again, is Josh Allen, a.k.a. Lore, joined by Jared Colston, a.k.a. VHell. We have had some amazing matches so far. That last match in particular was just completely epic. I got to admit, I'm a little bit sad to see Last Minute get knocked out. I'm a bit of a Talbottar fan myself, but Dream Team played absolutely beautifully in that last match, especially. So definitely well played to them and being able to continue on into the semifinals. But we have one more match about to come up. That's going to be Smell of GG versus Carlos's Bandidos.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting matchup. Smell of GG, of course, is going to be Losa, Tony, Supatis, and Taz. So they have a lot of different comps that they can play. If you look at just what everyone can play, of course, Losa known for playing that warrior mostly, but then, of course, we do have Tony that can play hunter, mage, really known for enhance. So he has a lot of different classes that he can play that can kind of round it out. Of course, that does mean that they're probably going to be sticking Supatis either onto that Moonkin Resto Druid he can play also, but that's why they have Taz on the team also. So he is going to be the second Resto Druid for the team.
Yeah, I believe that they do tend to prefer that. I believe they're playing LSD3 generally these days, which of course we've seen a couple matches with LSD3 already. Of course, Carlos Bandidos is playing Feral Lock Shaman, which has been very, very scary to see on the ladders lately. It's kind of a new comp that hasn't really been super popular until the last few weeks, but it's really come up in the last few weeks to be a very, very strong composition. So we'll have to see how that plays out. And in fact, for a little bit more information on this, let's actually go ahead and head over to Bajira, who can give us his expert opinions on how these two teams will match up.
All right, guys, Smell of GG, Carlos's Bandidos. These guys, what it looks like is gonna happen is they're all gonna be playing the sort of the same classes, right? Druid, Shaman, Warlock. But they're going to be switching up a little bit. It looks like Smell of GG is going to be bringing out, once again, another LSD3, a comp that we've seen already in this tournament have success, but then also falter against an RMD. One of the things that we haven't seen yet that I'm actually really, really pumped to see in the tournament is the Feral Warlock Shaman comp. Now, this comp is nasty. So if you thought the spread pressure of LSD3 was tough, wait till you get a look at the Feral Warlock Shaman team. Now, there's a particular type of play that I want you guys to look out for before we even get into the matches. It's the Incarnation Dark Soul combo. Once this Feral Druid pops his Incarnation King of the Jungle, he's able to stun targets on full DR, applying tons of bleeds, while his Warlock pops Dark Soul as well, applying dots that really sting. So one of the things that's going to happen is, if they do this way, something to look out for, is they will pop Incarnation, and stun one of the DPS, stun the other DPS, go hit the healer with 3 back-to-back stuns, both dealing damage and locking out the healer for a long period of time. On that final stun, look for the Feral Druid to cast a full Cyclone on the healer and swap back to the DPS with the rest of his damage. And since those DPS weren't able to be healed during that entire 3 back-to-back stun combo, they're probably going to be half health, and if they don't have a trinket or defensive cooldowns, and they get stunned with the next 2 stuns of that Feral King of the Jungle Incarnation, that could mean the end of it. However, the interesting thing about this is that since Taz the Resto Druid is playing LSD 3.0, he can match Incarnation King of the Jungle with his Incarnation Tree of Life. Now, obviously being able to spam regrowth is going to be a great tool, but what if you've got a Feral Druid stunning you 3 times into a Cyclone? That will pretty much guarantee a trinket or, additional defensive cooldowns out of the team. But look for that Incarnation for Incarnation combo. At that point, it's going to be up to the DPS to keep themselves alive. With the Warlocks healing and the Enhancement Shamans off healing, obviously he's going to be dropping some healing stream totems. He's going to be even using that Ancestral Guidance to heal with damage. But I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see some healing surges being casted by that Shaman, because Incarnation Dark Soul combo is ruthless. So keep an eye out for that in this next match. Casters, back to you.
Thanks so much, Bajira. And actually, there's been a surprising turn of events here, I think. Like Bajira, we were expecting LSD3 versus Feral Lock Shaman, and that's not actually what they're playing. Both teams have actually gone with different compositions for this. As we will be getting into this game here very, very shortly, Carlos's Bandidos is actually playing Feral Hunter Shaman, and Smell of GG is playing Turbo Cleave, which is Enhancement Shaman, Warrior, and Resto Druid. So this is going to be an interesting match. I'm actually surprised that they didn't go with the other compositions, which I think they they generally feel a little bit stronger. So maybe it's something they're sort of holding on to until later in the series.
It is possible, you know, because each team can play so many different comps, which really aren't counters of each other. Looks like we do have one team that is going to drop out of the match. They probably have to change something up. But one of the things to note is that Jelly was playing Survival, which is a big deal. You know, having that burst pressure, you know, of the Crows, BM, you know, with the focus fire on top is a lot of damage, but Survival is just incredible spread pressure. So it'll be interesting to see the two of these together. I really can't wait to watch Carlos Bandidos play. We've seen Smell of GG play Turbo a lot so far, so I really want to watch and see how well Jellybean, you know, because he has those shorter cooldowns on Trap. He's got a lot of spread pressure, you know, with all the different stings, you know, and dots that he can put out, which really complements a Feral Druid so well.
Yeah, and just to give a little bit of insight to what just happened in that match there for anyone who may be wondering, the way that the rules are set up, basically as soon as the gates open, the match is on, and whatever happens as a result of that match is final. However, if a team is having issues, like say an add-on isn't working properly, or they don't have their talent set right, or their keybinds are set wrong or something, they're having some sort of keyboard problem or something, then that's something that we can allow them to say, okay, look, we're having an issue, and they can go ahead and drop out of the game entirely, and as long as they do that before the gates actually open, that's still okay. We just step back out. We give each team a little bit of time allotted. We call a delay timer that will allow them to have a certain amount of time to say, okay, let's make sure everything is set and ready to go, because we don't want them to go into a match with something broken or something like that. We want to make sure that these games are the best that they possibly can be. So I'm not sure exactly what caused Carlos Bandidos to drop out of there, but perfectly reasonable, perfectly within the rules for them to do so.
I'll give you guys a hint. If you ever show up and you're playing at on site at like a regionals or an MLG or ESL in person, the number one thing that players forget to unbind is switching your action bar page. I've seen so many players die because they hit the wrong button and then they're with an entirely blank action bar. And they're like, my character stopped working. I can't cast any spells. And then, of course, there's a ref standing right behind them, and they weren't casting any spells because there weren't any spells on their hotbar. So if you guys show up to a tournament, make sure to unbind that key.
Definitely. So while we're waiting here, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the prize pool that these guys will be fighting over should they actually make it through to regionals. That will be a $100,000 prize pool at the Americas Regionals this year, which is huge. That's the biggest we've ever had for a regionals event, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So that's a pretty big deal. Every single team that qualifies will walk away with at least $2,000. The 7th and 8th place teams get $2,000 out of that prize pool. However, if you go all the way through and you win it, that $2,000 suddenly turns into $50,000, and there's about $48,000 difference there.
Yeah.
So it's still a big deal to actually win that thing, but even just getting to regionals at this point means that you get some sort of prize money. So that's a very, very big deal for these guys. So we're going to find out what's going on here very, very soon. Looks like both teams are trying to get into this match here once again as soon as possible. And in fact, the queue has now popped, so we will be getting into this match here very shortly and show you guys these two teams facing off against each other in this first match between Carlos's Bandidos and Smell of GG.
And one of the things to note is because the first match is double blind pick, and because these teams were in the game, they saw what the other team is playing, so we're not going to let them change their comp based on that little bit of information. Yep. So they're going to be stuck with these comps, but I think both teams are really confident in their choice in this matchup. They know that the comps that each one has to pick has to be able to counter one of many comps that the enemy team plays, and I think both of these accomplish that very well.
Yeah, and both teams are very familiar with these comps as well. We've seen Supatees, Tony, and Losa. They've won GCD on several occasions as this Turbo Cleave with these exact players. They're going to feel very confident as a Turbo Cleave here. And Carlos's Bandidos, Walter Bear, Jellybeans, Absters, they've played together a lot as well with this exact composition. So why not put out maybe the comp that you're most familiar with in this very first match and try to give yourself a little bit of an edge through that means. But the gates have now opened, and we are into this first game. Losa immediately charging out here onto Jellybeans, but Jellybeans just trying to turn it right back around onto Tony Jr. They're actually getting both the Ironbark and the Shamanistic Rage out of him right away as Supatees is caught into that bash immediately.
Yeah, it's Tony Jr. again down to half right now, but Supatees is at a CC. Great job of shadow melding that, but still forcing a Nature's Swiftness out of that too. Carlos Bandido looking great. They are going to turn it around onto Walter Bear, who is going to take a substantial amount of damage as you do see both Tony and Losa connecting on to him. So it looks like they are going to, yep, they're going to stick onto it. No, Losa's going to turn around and try to do some damage to Jellybeans. Let's see if Tony and let's see if they can split and do some damage to both DPS. Maybe not. Subati's already having to use Heart of the Wild out of that.
Yeah, he had to use his trinket there as well, and Tony still dipped pretty low for a second there. He was around 20% health for a second, so they're going to go ahead and get over here behind this pillar and get out of line of sight, try to get themselves an opportunity to heal back up. Of course, Tony is using his Ascendance at the moment, which allows him to attack from range, which is very important for being able to get behind that pillar. But now Supati's into that trap. Tony in the bash at 30% health and dipping lower and lower. The Shamanistic Rage comes out, but Supati's is still caught into this root. Is he going to be able to top him off time? The stun comes off, and just barely at that last second, a little bit of a heal, and the Nature Swiftness has now come up for Supati's, and he's going to go ahead and use that right away. But Tony's still taking so much pressure. The Shamanistic Rage has fallen off. He's still at 30% health. Can they keep up the pressure onto Tony Jr.? The trap comes out onto Supati's. He has no trinket, no way to get out of that. And with the stun onto Tony Jr., he is going to go down.
Wow. Hey, that was a great play. I loved that they really forced a lot of defensive cooldowns really early out of Smell of GG, and then they just immediately followed it up. And they kept the pressure on. They put Supati's into lots of CC. Supati's and Tony did do a great job of trying to stay next to each other. Of course, you know, trying to mitigate those possible traps that you can catch by standing on top of your Druid, but he just wasn't able to. But what an exciting match to start out this series.
Yeah, definitely. That was an amazing first match. That Feral Hunter Shaman, also known as Jungle Cleave composition, really showing how they can actually score those kills in those situations by just putting out that constant pressure with also the extra burst, especially with Jellybeans playing survival. I think that's a really, really interesting choice. And in fact, let's go ahead and take this over to Bajira at the analyst station to break down that match for us. Take it away.
Awesome to see such a great game coming out of that Jungle Cleave. Now, we do know that Smell of GG is revered and feared on the ladder for their Turbo Cleave. However, Jellybeans and Wallabear, definitely some of the most professionally skilled jungle players out there, and we saw that today. One of the interesting things that we did mention is that Jellybeans is playing that Survival Hunter, which means that that trap cooldown is a little bit shorter than normal. And because Turbo Cleave does have a lot of innate natural tankiness due to their ability to rotate cooldowns and a lot of times use that Enhancement Shaman to maybe off heal or prevent CC on their healer. What ended up happening there is even though they had prevention for CC and some really nice plays like that Shadow Meld on the trap, you know, if you chop through all the cooldowns, you know, every 20 seconds you get another cooldown, that Wallabear damage is there. That Jellybean Survival Hunter damage is there. Plus we saw some really nifty Jellybeans plays with that root that kept the Supati's out of LOS from Tony for so long, allowing them to force pressure and make that Shamanistic Rage an effective cooldown from preventing his health bar to depleting to 0, but it never really got filled up past like 30. So once that Shamanistic Rage faded, there was another Frost Trap ready to land on Supati's, and Tony Jr. just went down with that. So different comps than I first initially expected out of these guys, you know? However, knowing that they can play the Turbo Cleave and the Jungle Cleave, you know, with extreme prejudice, I'm not surprised in general to see them playing these comps. What'll be interesting to see is if, after we get a new map choice, after we know how that first game went, will Smell of GG turn it over to the LSD 3.0? And do you think if that's the case, you know, you gotta wonder what our buddies over there with Carlos's Bandidos are gonna do, because I think that Enhancement, Warlock, Resto Druid is gonna be a really tough matchup for Jungle Cleave. Even though Jungle Cleave does have that insane burst damage, you know, CC on a very low cooldown, they might not have the sort of general tankiness, especially with a Hunter on the team, to endure that Warlock and Enhancement Shaman pressure. So I think that if we see the swap to LSD 3.0 coming from Smell of GG, we will also see a comp swap coming out of Carlos's Bandidos, swapping over to that Feral Lock Shaman. I mean, maybe it's just me. That's a comp that I want to see. You know, I want to see LSD 3.0 square off against Feral Lock Shaman. You know, earlier the better. That being said, I'm not mad to see some Warriors in the tournament. You know, I got a lot of Warrior pride for my buddy Lassa, so, you know, it's going to be a tough match either way. if these teams decide to switch up their comp, which they have the option of doing, you know, we're gonna have some awesome matches on our hands, but if they stick with what they've got, you know, they gotta make some adjustments with their playstyle. You don't always wanna just switch your comp at the first loss. That being said, the decision to switch your comp or not at this point is crucial. These are a best of 3 matchup. So if Smell of GG goes down, if they make the wrong choice with their comp, you know, this could be the end of their tournament dreams. So we got to see what happens next game. Best way to do that is actually just to send it over to the casters and see what we got next.
Thanks so much for Jerry. We do have some answers to those very, very crucial questions coming in right now. So first things first, we have the map choice for Smell of GG. It's going to be Tiger's Peak. Which is a map that I love because it's pretty, not because of any real reasons, but just because it's pretty. Carlos Bandidos is sticking with that same Jungle Cleave composition, that Resto Shaman, Survival Hunter, and Feral Druid. But we do have a comp swap for Smell of GG, and it's an interesting one. Smell of GG is going to go for the Resto Druid, Frost Mage, and Moonkin Druid. So that's interesting. That you don't see a lot of the same class, 2 of the same class, even if they are different specs. You don't see that very often. So I'm really wondering what their strategy here is.
Yeah, one of the things to note is when we talk to Carlos Bandidos, kind of to get some information from each teams for something to talk about on the stream, is the one comp that they were most afraid of was Turbo. Right? So that Warrior Enhance, and they were able to dominate them in that first match. So they must feel so confident at this point. You know, maybe this isn't something that they're expecting. You know, normally this comp is played with that Holy Paladin as the healer instead of the Resto Druid, but I do believe Taz has only registered Resto Druid as his class that he can play. So we'll have to see right out of the gates if Smell of GG can come back. Super T's right out of the start, gonna try to dot up as much as he can, toss some damage out quickly with those Star Surges as quick Icy Veins coming out too to try to get some CC, but Absterge didn't get hit by that CC whatsoever. And look at the CC coming out and landing on Smell of GG already. As looks like Timer's coming out from the Moonkin as Super Tease is going to hit that Incarnation and toss out a bunch of damage. Looks like Jelly Beans is going to be their target of choice. We saw a bash onto that Cyclone. So Walter Bear wasn't able to land the Cyclone, but Jack Reacher getting low also. This match is so back and forth already, just damage out from both teams. Looks like they are going to go on to Super Tease, who is going to blink away. They really need to stop every moment of damage during this Incarnation from Super Tease.
Yeah, definitely. And as Carlos Bandidos, like, I can understand it would be kind of confusing to run into this because who do you actually target here? If you go after Super Tease, then you're giving him extra procs for those instant cast spells, which can do a whole lot of damage. So if you go after the Frost Mage, seems like the best choice, but Jack Reacher, he's going to have 2 different ice blocks, and he may have to use actually one of them right here, and he will. Wow, he got super low there for just a second. So that is going to be the first ice block for Jack Reacher, but that's going to give Smell of GG a lot of time to be able to work around this. Now as I say that, Super Tease actually has to run. He did get that bark skin out right back into the Moonkin form, trying to keep up that pressure as long as possible. So this is interesting to me. I can also see maybe some possibilities for some double Cyclone action, but now with that Iron Bark out onto Super Tease, it looks like they're actually happy to just stick onto him. They don't care about those instant casts. They want to be able to put as much damage into Super Tease as possible here. They're keeping him at around 40% health, and now with that Iron Bark falling off, he could find himself in a lot of trouble here if they keep it up, but no, they're going to switch it back over onto Jack Reacher and start going after him instead.
Absterge is doing an incredible job of staying out of CC. That is now 3 Cyclones that I've seen grounded by him. So Super Tease, every time he wants to try to put that CC out, he's just absolutely denied. There we go. Now we're going to have the Deep Freeze onto Absterge. Let's see if they can make something happen. Looks like they are going to be trying to hit Jelly Beans, but look, just no damages coming out. That Deep Freeze didn't do anything as Jack Reacher is getting low again. He does have an ice block available though, as we do see the stun landing onto Taz by Jelly Beans. With a bash onto Jelly Beans too, they really need to stop the damage. Cyclone comes out onto Jack Reacher, but he does have that block available at any time that they do switch onto him. But Absterge just doing an incredible job of keeping his team healthy. The Deep Freeze does land. Let's see if they can follow it out with anything, as it looks like, again, denies that Cyclone from Super Tease. Absterge just completely outplaying Super Tease right now.
Yeah, Jack Reacher may have to use his block here down to 10% health. He will have to use that. Almost didn't actually get it off in time. Taz now caught into a full Cyclone. That's going to last until after Jack Reacher's Ice Block falls off, but Super Tease super low as well. Down goes Super Tease, and it's looking like with Jack Reacher, yeah, it's looking like Smell of GG. They're going to go ahead and give their own GG. and say that that's the end of that series. Carlos Bandidos looking actually really, really dominant in both of those games.
Everything went absolutely perfect for Carlos Bandidos. Shout out to Absturge, man. He was my MVP of that matchup right there. The amount of times that he denied that Cyclone, because the big thing is starting that CC chain, you know, with the deep freeze, following it up with that Cyclone, you know, or a ring or a poly or anything that you can do. And I didn't see a single follow-up CC off of a deep freeze, and that really spelled defeat for Smell of GG.
Yeah, definitely. And with that comp that Smell of GG was playing, I kind of want to call it Icy Chicken Cleave, just as a throwback to Spicy Chicken Cleave from ages ago. But with that comp that they were playing, the one real advantage that I could think of for that was those double Cyclones. If they were able to get a Cyclone out onto Absturge and a DPS, at this, like Absturge and Walter Bear, and then go after Jellybeans, then there's no healing available for him at all. But they just were not able to land those Cyclones at all because of all those grounding totems, like you were saying, that Absturge was able to get out. So just really, really well played by Carlos Bandidos. Let's take this back over to the analyst desk and check in with Bajira to see what his thoughts were on that match.
So once again, I'm a bit baffled by that team comp decision. So, you know, admittedly, I'm a big fan of chicken, but I don't know about it in that pick. I mean, if you throw a chicken in the jungle, it might not go so well. So that was, you know, a team comp they could play. Maybe they decided not to go with that LSD3 that I talked about earlier because maybe Super T's didn't feel as confident on the Warlock. However, if that's the case, they must not have had confidence in their Turbo Cleave that they had queued. I mean, obviously I did say that they queued tons of Turbo Cleave on the ladder, so they do have experience with it. And if they really say to themselves, you know, there's really no way that we can beat this Jungle Cleave as Turbo Cleave, may as well play Mage Boomkin. I mean, I don't know exactly what happened there, but they're definitely basting in the Smell of GG right now. And that's it for them in the tournament. So the next set of matches that we're gonna have are definitely a set of matches that are gonna be packed with energy because we are gonna be seeing Sidu and his team Method face off against World of Warcats.